Stand late, and you can explain all the beautiful stuff that you do now. Namaste. Namaste.
And I think it's really beautiful how this segues what we just learned about the feminine. Really quick about me, because I want to get into this. I have a lot of information to get to. I'm a licensed massage therapist. I do a lot of spiritual work, spiritual cleansing. I'm a mind, body, spirit coach. I'm also a Kabbalistic mystic, and I explore the upper worlds. And this information came to me because I was working on my next book. I was originally going to call it Embrace the Dark Within, shining a light on our inner shadows, but I had too many questions. And when you ask the universe a question, it's amazing how things come to you. But before I get into this, I kind of want to get a feel about who's here. How many of you are energy workers? Okay, good. About a third of you. How many of you are here for healing? And you want to understand healing more? More than half of you. That's beautiful. So this is the fourth book that's going to be coming out. At least that's the cover we're working on right now. Unleash the Feminine Dark, Healing the Collective Unconscious. So how this came to me was really interesting. I was asking questions. Why are we feeling this shift? How many are feeling this shift happening? What is this shift happening? How many have been feeling this shift for more than a year? Good, about half of you. How many have been feeling this shift for about 10 years? So we're talking 2002, 2003. How many have been feeling this shift since maybe like 1993? Okay, just a few of you. I'm going to get into some explanation of why, okay? And it's going to be beautiful. I'm going to see some aha moments. But when I was asking the universe these questions, what is this that we're all feeling? And it goes beautifully with what our previous speaker was talking about, yin and yang, positive, negative, masculine, feminine. So I asked the universe, and you know, when the universe shows me something 3 times, I better listen, right? Mm-hmm. You pay attention when the universe has shown you something 3 times. Well, this book came into my experience. It's called Pendulum. How perfect. I'm an energy worker. I have a pendulum with me at all times. I'm like, great, I'm going to go check out this book. It's about marketing and advertising. And I'm like, what the what the heck is this about? I left it, okay? Came into my experience a second time, and this was a friend on Facebook kind of posted, and she is into marketing, but I'm like, okay, this is kind of the second time this book is coming into my experience. I'll go look at it. But again, it's like marketing and advertising. That's just not my bag, okay? I'm into healing work and growing consciousness, that kind of stuff. Third time, the author, one of the co-authors of the book, I get a friend request from. Now, I'm an author, so a lot of times authors want to connect with other authors, okay? And I thought, who is this guy? And I find out he's the co-author of this book, Pendulum. His last name is the first name of my husband, Drew. So, and it's the third time it's coming into my experience, so I'm like, okay, I better pay attention. Spirit's trying to tell me something. Now, if you're into marketing and advertising, I highly recommend this book. But there's a concept within this book that I'm going to get into that made a light bulb go off. This is why the universe is trying to tell me something. This book goes into, and they did their own research related to marketing and advertising. They talk about this pendulum swing, okay, and everybody knows what this is. And they talk about why can't we use the same type of marketing we used in the 80s and 90s now? Why is that? So they went into a lot of history and research, and they found other books that had done history and research, and they talk about 40-year swings, okay? So we have your 0 point, then you have a swing to the right, and you have a swing to the left. And then we're talking about this swing to the right was a me generation. It was all about me. So from 1983 to about 2003, okay, it changed first in 1963 to 2003, so that's your 40 years, and they talk about 40 years throughout this book. So the last 40 years, from 1963 to 2003, was a me swing in the pendulum, okay? From 2003 to 40 years later, we are going into a we. So Michael Drew calls it a me swing and a we swing. Everybody following me so far? So I'm watching this presentation. I told Michael, you know, I'd give it a try. He's like, you know what, let me send you the book. He sent me the book, which was really nice. It was just that one piece that made a light bulb go off. Me, we, yang, yin. Yang is masculine, yin is feminine. Does everybody understand the concept of the yin and yang? Yin is feminine, yang is masculine. So we are coming out of an energy that drives the force of our behaviors on a collective, unconscious level. I know I keep blocking this, sorry about that. So we have this pendulum swing. So I'm watching this thing and they go in the history of advertising. But in the back of my mind I keep going, we're going into a yin cycle. We have been going into a yin cycle since 2003. What is this driving force that makes us go more yin and makes us go more yang? And it's a total of 80 years. So you have your 0 point, right in the middle, right when we switch. Then you have 20 years up, 20 years back to 0 point. When we get to that 20 years up, it's called the zenith. We've reached our maximum, and we're also more out of balance from the 0 point, okay? Then we're 20 years out and 20 years back. So this is an 80-year cycle for a complete yin-yang or me-we cycle. So hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about that, let me know. So again, we're talking about yin and yang, masculine and feminine cycles, 40 years. Well, how did they come up with this 40 years? Well, I'm a Kabbalist, and I also studied the Hebrew and Greek scriptures for about 20 years. 40 years according to the Bible. And you don't have to believe the Bible, it's just a document that we can refer to. But 40 years is mentioned in the Bible. Over 140 times. So I just wanted to show this picture to you. And you notice the red is the yang, the masculine. The blue is the feminine, the cold. But there's always a little bit of yang in the blue, and there's always a little bit of yin in the red. So we will always have a little bit of the opposite energy to keep that balance. But since 2003, we have been going into a yin cycle. Darkness, feminine darkness, the collective unconscious. So again, here's, for those of you that don't understand what yin and yang, it's ancient Chinese history here. Yin is feminine and passive, whereas yang is masculine, aggressive. Yin is earth, yang is sun. So there's always a balance. You're always finding that balance. Yin is let's do things together. We're all in this together for the common good. Yang is, you know what, I can do this myself. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Okay, so those kind of mentalities. Yin is we, doing it, it takes a village to raise a child. Okay? Yang is me, it's all about me, I don't care about you, me, me, me. Yin, this is very important because yin is the subconscious, yang is the ego. And even the speaker before us was talking about the head being the ego and showing the balance between yin and yang. And then going deeper, yin is the collective unconscious, yang is that universal mind, okay? So this is one of my favorite quotes from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. In traditional Chinese medicine and Chinese teaching, yin, the feminine, is considered the quiet powerful. And I talk about that in my book, The Way of the Modern Mystic. So I'm going to get into some Bible references, but just to let you know, these are just for references. And they're not something you have to believe. I just want to show you how these words have been in our history for thousands of years. The number 40, because we were talking about there's a yin cycle of 40 years and there's a yang cycle of 40 years for a total of an 80-year complete cycle. So the number 40 is mentioned 146 times within the Bible. And 40, any numerologists here? So 40 representing, dividing 5 and 8. 5 meaning an action of grace. And then 8 is revival and renewal. So if you take an 8 and put it on its side, it's the infinity symbol. Okay, so there's revival and renewal. It's this constant cycle. Okay? So going back in time again with the 40 years, so we're at the 0 point, and we go 40 years for one half of the cycle coming back, 40 years for the second half of the cycle. The Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years, if you choose to believe that, but it's documented in our history book. Jesus fasted for 40 days, it rained for 40 days. See how 40 is becoming very significant here. Jonah, the whale, he warned the city, and they had 40 days to turn things around, or God was going to destroy the city. So according to Michael Drew, and he's taking it again from an advertising marketing standpoint, he says from 10 years into the yin cycle, or what he calls the we cycle, things began to really change. Because remember, you're at the 0 point. 10 years in is 2013. 2013 to 2023, we're the furthest away from the 0 point. We are the most out of balance. And then it goes the same track, 2023 to 2033. It's the same path, going up and going down. So he says we are about to enter the ugliest 20 years of the pendulum's 80-year round trip. Now, I'm not a fear monger, okay? I don't want to spread fear. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is really exciting, because there's so much that we can do, and that's what I want to get into. I don't want to get into the fear, but I want to show you historically what has happened. I went back the last 80 years, the 80 years before that, the 80 years before that, and I went back as far as I can find. So the question is, does history repeat itself? And we always hear history does repeat itself. But why? Why does history repeat itself? That was my question. Why? And I got an answer. But in the last 80-year cycle, the most recent yin cycle was in 1943. Okay? And here were some things that were going on in 1943. And we don't know this. We didn't live it. We're talking 80 years ago. This is our grandparents and great-grandparents that went through this. But a time of 1943 was Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Joseph McCartney. All of these things were going on. Joseph McCartney was into like witch hunts, that kind of stuff. So, and then 80 years before that was the Civil War here in the United States. Isn't this fascinating? Well, to me it is. Before that was 1783, and that's when the guillotine was introduced in Europe. They estimate between 20 and 40,000 people were killed. Okay, and again, please don't think I'm spreading fear. I'm just showing you that the yin cycle is something really special. And this is exciting. And then in 1703, we had the Salem witch trials. Okay? Do you see a pattern here? The witch hunts and public burnings that were happening in Europe in 1543. I decided to go all the way back to when Moses wrote the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible. And that was in 1445. Guess what? The beginning of a yin cycle. Why? Why would he write the Pentateuch at the beginning of a yin cycle? So we all recognize this picture. It's the snake that Eve took, and Adam said, "It's this woman you gave me." Okay, so Adam representing the masculine, woman representing the feminine, passive, Adam being aggressive, saying, it's her fault, okay? And then the snake, what the heck is that all about? Snakes don't talk. Well, as a Kabbalists view the Bible, especially the Torah and the first 5 books of the Bible, as symbolic only, okay? So now I'm going to show you a picture, and there's a lot of energy workers in this room. I want to show you a picture, and you tell me what it looks like to you. In energy work, what does this represent?
Kundalini.
Kundalini, the energy rising. Okay? So symbolically, from a Kabbalistic viewpoint, we were coming out of a masculine cycle into a feminine cycle. The snake representing the feminine energy coming up. And the masculine energy being aggressive, wanting to suppress it. So to me, this was the first recorded evidence of the feminine energy being suppressed. And so as we look at history, every time we come into this yin cycle, the feminine energy is being suppressed. And as women, we are the feminine. We represent the feminine in this physical plane. So as a manifestation of wanting to suppress the energy, because yang energy is aggressive. So as a manifestation, women tend to have been throughout history suppressed. And so now, since 2003, this yin energy has been wanting to come up, wanting to become the dominant energy. Because remember, with that yin and yang symbol, we always have one dominant energy, and we're coming out of a dominant yang energy and into a dominant yin energy. And suppression has happened. So what has history taught us? Looking back at history and all of the cycles that have come, history's taught us that the yin cycle will teach us that working together for the common good can quickly lead to self-righteousness. So if you think about Hitler, he is going to make the master race a exemplified self-righteousness type of behavior. So these are going into the different types of behavior that started to manifest because the yang energy wanted to keep the yin energy suppressed. Widespread viciousness. So if you look at your history books, take a look at the dates of when these things happened and if they were going into a yin cycle, coming out of a yang cycle. And society becomes highly regimented and conformed. So if you think about World War II, everybody kind of dressed the same. Look at what they were wearing. Everybody was kind of the same. But if you look at us now, everybody looks kind of different and unique. But that is going to change. If any fashion designers here know that the behavior of conformity is going to start to become stronger. Okay? And this is good from a marketing standpoint. Again, if you're a marketer, check out that book. If you're into music, pay attention to what kind of music there was in the 1940s and kind of get an idea of what kind of music is coming, okay, for this next yin cycle. One thing that we're finding that's happening today that happened back in the 1940s was we want the truth even if it's ugly. And what's happening today? People are being exposed like never before. So this is the type of energy. And so I would ask myself, what is this driving force? What causes us to shift to a yin cycle and then shift back? Because you know that the universe is all about cycles. We're constantly shifting back and forth, and we constantly will shift back and forth. But what is causing us to behave and shift in this? And Carl Jung came to me in a dream, and he says, the shift, the moving forward into the yin energy is the collective unconscious. So we're doing it all together, whether we know it or not. It's happening within the subconscious. And then, of course, working together for the common good. If you look at the last yin cycle in the 1940s, women stopped working at home and they went to go work in the factories to work together for the common good, for their country. It was all working together. We're going to start to see more of that. Working together to expose corporations that are killing us for profit. Those kind of things are happening more and more. And the only way we can expose those corporations is if we work together for the common good, because we want, you see this happening already. So social trends. These historically are social trends of a yin cycle and something for everybody to be aware of.